Hello, hello, my dear.
Hello. We're
Sorry we're late,
chuckling
everyone, but
because, yeah, it never fails with our technology some on Mondays, so it cracks me up. All you can do is laugh, right?
right, roll with the punches. That's all we can
We
do,
do.
right?
Well, you know what? We're not a big production. We are just two women. Um, and that's it, right? I mean, we decided to do this live. We don't even like put makeup on and have like lights and fancy microphones, and we don't do any of that. So, welcome everyone to Beyond Nutrition Community Podcast. We're your host. I'm Sherry.
And I'm Becky.
And we're so grateful you're spending some time with us. So, our mission is simple, it's to help you move beyond diets, confusion, and quick fixes towards a healthier, more sustainable relationship with your body, your health, and your life. Here in our community, we believe that true wellness is more than just counting calories or macros or a number on the scale. It's about understanding how the body was designed to work, learning to support it instead of fighting against it, and creating habits that are realistic and sustainable and life giving. Whether you are on a journey to improve your nutrition, manage your weight, increase your energy, or simply understand your health, on a deeper level, this is a space where we learn, grow, and support one another. So tonight, our topic is titled So dot dot dot. We're just accusing everyone of being on shots now. Apparently, we've reached a point in society where if someone loses weight, the first question isn't how are you doing it or what's been working for you. It's so what shot are you on? So this week's episode was actually inspired by something that happened to our very own Becky. In the span of less than 24 hours, Becky was both asked and outright accused of using injections to achieve her recent weight loss. No questions, no conversations, just assumptions. So tonight we're going to pull back the curtain and we're going to have an honest conversation about what happened, why people immediately jump to conclusions, and whether we've become way too comfortable speculating about other people's bodies and health decisions. And for the record, believe it or not, people can still lose weight without taking a shot. So, Becky, take us back. Tell us what happened this past week.
Right. Yeah. The unicorn in the crowd here. So that's exactly what happened or what it felt like, right? What made it so interesting was that it happened twice in less than 24 hours. I had two completely separate situations where weight loss immediately become associated with the shots, with injecting something, right? What one of the P's, if you will. And so um, there were, different things, but the real curiosity, it wasn't the accusation. They were accusations. It wasn't curiosity of what I had been doing or what I had changed or, how long I had been working on my health. Some of these were people that had known me before and then, seeing more of like the recent side by side comparisons. But the assumptions were basically you've lost significant amount of weight, therefore you must be taking something because I have been doing it for so long, right? And it did kind of catch me off guard because I have also been very public about this whole process. I've shared, food in my stories. I've shared my imperfect workouts. I've shared me, being outside, my sleep. I've been very open about, my Aura Ring and my Hume Band, the changes that I've made with carbs, protein, movement, nervous system. I have felt like I have been very open and different ways that I've evolved even along the way. Yet somehow the visible results erase that whole, entire process because in someone else's mind. And it was like I immediately got here, in the last just couple months, right? Not the fact of it has been such a journey.
So, when was the first time someone asked you if you were taking an injection?
So the first time that they ask, I know that there were, accusations or speculation made. But I would say the first time that I was aware, right? Because I've had other people be like, well, someone asked me if type thing, right? So hearing it through the grapevine, but the first time that someone actually asked me was when I actually hit 145 pounds. Um, so that put it about at a 40, 50 pound, weight loss. Um, and then ever since I've gotten past that. But the first, to have the most recent two was just this past week. And having them that close together is what, made me realize that it's it's people's automatic default, right? They just automatically default to that instead of being interested, instead of asking again, what have you been doing? People just automatically jump to because it is so mainstream popular right now of what shot are you on? What's your regimen?
Absolutely. So, I know what your immediate reaction was because you called me. But the first one was an actual question.
Hmm.
The next one, in less than 24 hours, was not. It was an accusation. So, what was your immediate reaction when you heard the first one and then the second one?
The first one again was someone that knew me, right? They knew kind of my journey. They knew what I had been doing. And it was more, in that aspect of what has changed and how have you structured it. More curiosity towards like my coaching and what I've created. The second one, I will say, initially the response was it pissed me off. Um, and it made me mad because my stance has been for years, and I know we'll go back through kind of the timeline of history here, but my stance has always been no pills, no pokes, no potions. I have been very open about that for well over 2 years.
Well, let me
And
stop you right there. So, when you say that, are you talking about everybody or your journey?
me
There
personally,
we go. Yep.
um, me personally, this is just my journey. It's what's the stance I took. And like I said, we'll go back through the timeline here because I will point out a point, right? There was a point where even myself was on pharmaceutical medications. There was a point where I was in the Western medicine allopathic realm, right? And was told I needed those. And then that kind of, again, transitioned into more of like the functional space until I basically said, forget it, I'm done with it all. And literally threw it out in a diaper box. But again, that's anyone that has known me knows, that this has been a process up and down. I've been over 200 pounds a couple different times in my life. And so when, I finally had enough was the most recent time. But yeah, the initial reaction, again, it come more from a caring place. The
Mhm.
second one, was solely an accusation. She was very skeptical on what I had been doing, trying to say that I also gatekeep information. I've opened up, Instagram. Anyone that's over here watching on Instagram, scroll back, you see it in my feed. Um, but also the fact of they were taking someone else's program down with me, right? They were trying to say that I was gatekeeping the information, and the only reason that um, we have this program or that I'm not sharing my story is because we want to sell a program. Um, if you want to accuse me of something, come at me. Don't come at, my colleague. It's the program that Sarah Kleiner and I end up and do together. So I am, her head coach, and she actually sent it to me. And when I read that, again, it's my journey. Yes, what we, teach in that program is a lot of the foundations of what I do as well. But I also have my way of doing it because it's my journey, right? So anyone that buys that program is not going to have the same journey as what I have.
Right.
There's, so yeah, that kind of stung a little bit. Still irritated me, created a very snarky result because, like I said, I have been very consistent on my stance of no pills, no pokes, no potions. I don't even do, the little happy juices or the, burn fuel, whatever you want to end up and call them. I can't even think of them all. Burner pills in a bottle or whatever you want to call them. Because again, through the months, through the years of learning, right? I can't tell you how many studies I've looked at, how many courses I've taken, how many, different experiments of myself I have done,
Hmm.
and changing and evolving what hasn't worked, eating differently than what the main fad is, right? I followed that. Again, as we get into this a little bit deeper and I go through, I do have pictures loaded to kind of give that timeline. But yeah, part of me wanted to just say, in a very snarky way,
Hmm.
that did did the shot help me to end up and get outside in the morning? Did it help me to get in the dungeon in the morning? Did it help me to, meal prep my meals? Did it, help me to fall asleep? No, that's all stuff that I focused on, right? That was me doing. It wasn't because I was injecting something, but they seem to gloss over that.
Yeah, well, and it's sad because people have stopped believing weight loss can happen through the old fashioned consistency. And we've reached a point where weight loss isn't congratulated anymore, it's investigated. But let's go ahead and for the listeners who don't know, they don't know what changes you have actually made to lose weight. Let's go back. Let's hear Becky's real journey.
So that's where hold on here because I'm going to end up and add to the stage. So I have several different slides. You can see this is me at my wedding. This was in '07. So we're going back, but trust me, stick with me here. I did speed this timeline up just a little bit. So I'm not going to go year by year, solely through it all, but this was me, right? And at that point, I was doing Weight Watchers. This was when I was still worked in healthcare. I still worked at our local hospital. I was dealing with health issues here. So I can remember in '07, '08, '09, and I say it that way because in '07 and '08, I was dealing with the asthma. I was dealing with cardiac issues while I still worked at the hospital. I did, I would go to outpatient clinic because did the stress tests. I would end up and see Dr. Chaudre, which was a cardiologist here at the time. I also had to go to Hastings through Nebraska Heart. Wore heart monitors, did that whole realm again of allopathic medicine. And, this, like I said, this is me. It started to go downhill in '07 or '08, to the point where while I was pregnant with my daughter, I was doing progesterone injections because Um, my uterine lining wasn't thick enough, and so I had to do progesterone injections. She was born in November of '08, and like I said, still dealing with other health issues even during that time frame. Um, Finally had my hysterectomy in 2009, 2010 ish. It was the end of 2009. So you can see, I'm even at that point started to first gain weight. Our local Weight Watchers closed. I had quit working at the hospital in August. Well, stopped working full time in November when I went on maternity leave with our daughter, and then I fully quit in January that following year. So at this point, I was out of healthcare. I was working from home and still dealing with health issues. Can't click the button and talk at the same time. So then, yes, I ended up and I had my hysterectomy. I was only 29, and my health continued to deteriorate after that, leading to me being on 7 different pharmaceutical medications and cardiology appointments, pulmonary appointments. I was on SSRI. I was because at that point, I was battling with depression. I was battling with gut health issues. I was battling asthma, heart, pre-diabetic. My A1C was starting to climb, and you can tell that even here in 2009, 2010, a lot of my weight had settled into my midsection. And so fast forward 2013, again, really building that out in my midsection, and to the point where I knew, I knew at this point I needed to do something, right? And so I started Googling like many of us do, right? I took my kids, we would go on walks. I would look at how can I eat clean? How can I end up and burn weight? How can I, fast? Workout challenge, meal plan, all of that. I even did, multiple different plans at that point in time. Fast forward, again, still dealing with issues, still, having problems, if you will. And that's where in 2017, my oldest son, my stepson, ended up and graduated high school. And then in 2018, that is the family picture that never got printed. So the 2018 picture is me at my highest. That was when I was 212 pounds. I had 2 layers of compression on under this. Well, I had Spanx, and I ended up and I had a waist trainer. And then I had a compression shirt too, because my waist trainer was so tight that the little hook clasps, you could actually see them kind of bulging. So then I ended up and I had a compression tank top on underneath this shirt, and I was miserable. It was awful. Not gonna end up and lie. And so then after that, in 2018, 2019, this is when I ended up and I started carnivore. These were some very first pictures that, again, the progress that people would see in community, they got posted, right? I have been very open about my journey. I would do challenges. I would do fasting. But 2019, I ended up and I jumped full on in carnivore, World Carnivore Month with Dr. Baker. Throughout that, I did different fat fasts. I did different approaches. You can see between the two, I did end up and lose, a little bit of the midsection. I was doing, like I said, different fasts. Water fast made me, did not work for me. So then I created an actual whole program that was a fat fasting program. It worked a little bit. I got very strategic in how to hide the progress. And by that, I mean angles sucking in my stomach. You can still end up and see there's a significant layer of fat, even in my arms, in my midsection. But there was progress, right? And so then I knew after 2 years of being carnivore, you can see the puffy face, the round face. My labs were reflecting the fact of thyroid was still not getting better. Triglycerides were climbing. Again, lab work is posted on my pages. This is something that I have been very open with. Um, and then again, our son graduated college in um, roughly that same time. And I knew at this point that I needed to do something different, right? Again, you can see at the bottom left-hand corner, these are pictures that I pulled off my own social media. So as I go through this timeline, you will see the dates, right? I did found and create the BNC community, and that's the first time that I come up with these 6 intuitive steps, because in 2021, go back here, in 2021 I ended up and I got certified in quantum and circadian biology, and I started to look at things on a different approach from that matter, right? I was still doing whole food the whole time that I had been researching everything. I was clean eating. I wasn't doing the processed stuff. But in 22, 23 is when I founded the BNC community. I started to look at things from a seasonal approach, and then in 24 was again the point that I had reached. So I lost the weight with, fat fasting, but things still weren't improving. And that's when I started to look beyond and put things in perspective. But then when I went to the keto conference, when I went on my cruise, ultimately in 24, I was back up at my highest. And like I said, you can see most of it is in my midsection. So I got very, strategic with a lot of my pictures would be face up, right? Or it would be from a higher up angle to make that appearance to where it looked, perceived differently. But there were, front on pictures that you could see what I actually look like. That was then in 24. So we're going back to the end of 24. That was when I put out my first guide. And I called it the Quick Start Guide because that's what ended up and structured everything of those 6 intuitive steps into one. This is not my recent program. This was just the first program, going back and showing that I have been working on this and I have been evolving again over the time frame, right? This isn't gatekept information. This is information that I have been sharing. I just needed a way to put it so that I could share it, right? This was a guide that we even put in the BNC community. People had access to this. This wasn't, a secret. I shared my workouts. I shared my weight loss. So I don't understand, these people that are coming out saying that, it's all been within just the last couple months. I mean, this post right here is, I'm already 10, 15 pounds down, so again, where are we in perspective as far as, people with weight loss, right? I've shared my dungeon workouts. I've shared, all of that. I
Hold
put
on,
out this.
Becky.
Yep.
Go the dungeon workouts. You
Hmm.
got criticized for that too.
Oh, I did. Yes,
You did.
I was doing them wrong. I had the wrong form. I was using the wrong bar. I was, yeah, the list goes on. And to the point where I finally quit doing them. Um, because I was like, you know what? I realize there's, internet trolls out there. I realize the fact that people are just going to end up and comment and say, right? It's easy to stand behind a computer. So that's when I then ended up and shifted. And in this one, oh, you maybe can't see it the picture's a little small in this one. I started calling it the imperfect workout because, again, it's my journey. I was getting my butt there, right? I was going for walks. I was doing my workout. I was, doing it, even though it may not have been perfect form or perfect workout, rotation or routine of someone else. I was still showing up. I was showing up for myself, and I was showing up, more so for that side of the accountability. And that was why I was posting it. That's why I was sharing it. That's why, this little spreadsheet that I kept putting out, I kept screenshotting my walks because it wasn't extensive. I mean, we're talking maybe, 30 minutes in the gym. If that, sometimes, right? Sometimes my walk was 2 miles. It was a mile down the road and back. And at that point I didn't have, oops, sorry, click the button too soon. At this point, I didn't have my weighted vest. These were just simply me getting out, me being one with nature, if you will, hitting one foot in front of the other, hitting the gravel. And this is when, I started to really, really structure it. I put together my method that I am currently using, and this is when I started to put together the side-by-sides. I would say this is when people started to question what I was doing, because you could see it, right? I could see it. I still end up and see, even in, what at this point was, a before and current photo, I see a difference, but, I still see that there was work to do. Again, continue sharing, right? Natural lifestyle, no pills, no pokes, no potions. It's been my stance. And like I said, this is when I labeled it. I'll put it that way. When I labeled it aligned metabolism method. So my plan that I had been doing, I had implemented with myself. I had turned around and implemented it with established clients. And I finally created it as a package program to where they got 12 coaching sessions, in 12 coaching sessions in 6 months. So 12 and 6, 12 sessions, 6 months to use. My progress continued. Again, I laid it out, right? I laid out what I was doing. I was open with it. I shared the knowledge that I had gained. I shared the carbs that I had added back after being very low carb for years. Changing my exercise, because my goal has even now become, building muscle. And so then I started, putting even further. I'm looking for this is also when this photo, which was a family photo on our deck, got questioned after that photo got sent, but I was currently looking for one. But yeah, so I was looking for my imperfect flexing photo, but I might not have had it loaded in there, because when I started to change my exercise, because my goal had shifted, right? I did the cut. I did, lose weight the normal way, right? The old fashioned way. Structuring, making sure I was getting sleep, making sure I was getting sunlight, making sure, that I was eating what was right for my body, not fasting, right? I was very open about eating 3 meals a day. But then when I shifted and started to what I called Operation Building Muscle rather than, weight loss, and started to shift, that even got questioned. And the hardest work hasn't been physical. A lot of it has been even the mental side. And that's where stress management comes into play, right? The stress and nervous system, the mental side, as I, have gone through this, is one of the biggest factors, because again, I said I was on, those 7 different medications, and part of that was the depression. So, you know, before people knew me, yeah, I was in that space.
So people saw the after picture, right? But nobody was paying attention during the process. And literally anybody can go back on your social media and go way back and see the progression, right? And that's
Mhm.
the irony, that the same people making the assumptions probably weren't encouraging you when you started. And again, they weren't paying attention because you put it out there. You put out your food. You put out, you were out there in the morning, getting the morning light. These are all, we talk about it. We have been at this, what we say, 3 years on our
Mhm.
podcast. Go back and listen to our podcast. We talk about all this. So when we're going to kind of dig into the assumptions as you keep going through the slides, but what do you think made people automatically assume you were taking an injection?
My feeling, and we're going to address this as my feeling, right? Because there's a lot of GLP-1 medications out there. Um, they have become incredibly visible culturally. There is so many different people using them, right? And I'm not saying that they can't be, but people are seeing dramatic transformations everywhere, especially online, because you're only seeing a highlight reel. A lot of people are only sharing part of it, right? And medication and different avenues of access to that have become so visible and part of every conversation that now significant weight loss, it automatically creates that, right? Because you scroll through a Instagram feed, or you scroll TikTok reels, or you scroll, it's out there, right? And so um people have such availability to the medications that if someone doesn't know someone's medical history, or someone's body, right, then they don't necessarily take the time. They just end up and see that snapshot, because again, when you're scrolling your phone, you're just seeing that snapshot. People aren't going back and looking at your page to see that, right? You only have typically a 15-second clip or a 60-second clip to be able to get your message out, or to be able to get your method right. um and so people are in that instant gratification side of things, that they automatically jump to that assumption, because again, it's so mainstream, everyone is doing it. So
So, did anyone ask about the work you put in before jumping to that conclusion? And we do know the first person did, right? But there's
yes.
been others. There's been other comments that you haven't even, that I know has been said, right? That you look sickly.
Yeah.
There's been a lot. Um, so did those people ask you what have you been doing? Or did they just automatically go to the conclusion?
Many end up and just go to the conclusion. The
Yeah.
assumption came first, right? And that can feel very dismissive, right? Because again, you've seen the timeline. Yes, I sped through the timeline, but it wasn't just here and now, right? It wasn't like this was just done. And again, another photo I meant to put up was, my Hume scale. This wasn't just done in the last 6 months, right? I'm not looking for, kudos or congratulations. You don't have to congratulate me on every workout. That's not what I'm saying. What I am putting out there is an explanation for my body, because I have wanted to explain that. I have wanted to, signify this is what I am doing and this is the road I have chose to go, and this is my experience with it. And so when someone ends up and automatically just assume, because they end up and they see the before and they see, where I'm at currently, that feels like a lot of that work that I have done and evolved from. I'm not going to say that, carnivore didn't work or keto and, flexing didn't work. It worked until it didn't. It was a tool. But ultimately it did not get me where I am. Now, again, I don't regret doing it, because I did learn a lot through that time frame, right? Um, but yeah, I do feel like a lot of times when people automatically jump to those assumptions, it can feel very dismissive.
Well, not only that, but all your hard work just got replaced, right? And so it's very frustrating because people didn't see what the nights where you made sure you were in bed asleep, or the nights you didn't sleep well, or the stress that you were under of outside sources, and how you dealt with that. There were a lot of behind the scenes things, but it was so frustrating because you worked so hard to get there. And so, what's the biggest misconception people have about your weight loss journey? Because I know when I first met you, you were the carnivore person, right?
Mhm.
Like, people still identify that label on you. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and they do, and a lot of people know me as a coach from that space, because I was one of. I'm not gonna say I was the only one, but I was one of the head coaches for one of the biggest carnivore platforms at that point, right? Back in 2019 through 2021. I was, like I said, one of the head coaches. I had helped with even behind the scenes with that platform, um, and so that's where I don't want to say my identity, but that's essentially right. People identified me with that space, and then there's even the people that identify me with a keto space, um, because I did coach for that space. And then still doesn't mean that I can't coach those methods, or, that there was that one magic thing. And I'm not saying that what I have found is the magic thing for everyone, right? There wasn't the one, right? I didn't suddenly discover a perfect diet. I didn't suddenly discover the perfect light. Um, I didn't find a supplement that fixed anything. I mean, like I said, I had over a diaper box. And again, I've shared that picture of me throwing it out. There wasn't a perfect workout routine that, melded my weight off. Um, my body changed as my lifestyle changed. And that's where, yes, the light mattered, my sleep, my food, um, the way I ate my food, right? The timing of my food, the strategic um, amount of carbs that I have put in. Because back in, when I was carnivore, obviously I was zero carb. And then I started to do keto, and then I started to do keto flexing, where I would increase carbs 1 day a week. And then, I started to, in the end of 24, when I started to do my own way and listen to my own body of what my body needed with my autoimmune condition and my Hashimoto's, and being, post menopause or post hysterectomy, menopausal, essentially. It put me into surgical menopause. Um, I needed that fuel of carbs, and my thyroid levels got better. My triglycerides come down when I started to put extra carb or more carbs percentage in there. But ultimately, it was when I increased the carbs again and put in my movement. Again, what I do typically is only 15-20 minutes. So it's not a extensive program that I am doing, or it's not hit, right? Because again, I'm balancing that cortisol side of things. And so I also listen to my body. I know one of the questions that got posted on Instagram, and again, if anyone, YouTube, Instagram, any of you have any questions, we'll go back and answer the questions at the end of this too. But when I put those carbs in there and listen to my body about the workouts, it wasn't that it was like, oh, I don't want to do a workout today, so I'm just not going to end up and do it, right? If I wasn't sleeping well, if I wasn't recovering well, if my resting heart rate. So the person that asked, did my Hume scale adjust my workouts or my goal? As far as my goal, yes. When I started to use the Hume in 2025, what are we in? 26. So I started with the Fit Track in 24, which is a sister scale, I'll say, to the Hume. And then when I started, my method and started the Hume, that is the progress. When people see that Wellness Wednesday post and I'm sharing, the body fat percentage, the lean muscle mass, I'm sharing all of that. I also have the Hume band. So it's not necessarily the scale itself that is adjusting my workouts or adjusting my goals. It's how is all of the information of my sleep that I get from the Hume band, my, recovery side of things, what is my body fat percentage, what is my lean muscle mass, all of that side. Again, stress management, that's one of the things that the Hume will end up and tell me is the stress, how well my stress is doing. All of that adjusts what I am doing. So I don't adjust day to day. It's one of those where I evaluate. If I need to end up and adjust, then I'll do it even on a weekly check-in, not a daily, unless it's the sleep side of things. If I had really poor sleep, Sherri, you know as well as anyone, on some of these nights where stress and life is life. That's what I like to say. Life's. I won't do as much, strenuous activity. I will do more of like the legs up the wall, more breath work. Again, the nervous system side, right? So it's not that I'm just saying, oh, piss to it, I don't want to end up and do it. It's how well are you listening to your body? How well are you gaining that consistency? And it's
Yeah, and
one
we
lever.
have check-ins, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we talk almost daily, and we're really what we're doing is having a check-in for both of us. And I mean, I'll be honest. I remember you calling one time, going, "I stopped at the gas station," and you were stressed. And you know what? It was like, okay, so we both know that you had your moment, but that didn't derail you. That didn't make you on the very next meal fall off. You had a moment. And you know what? You were calling and checking in. And what I didn't do was go, oh, Becky, oh, bad Becky, Becky, naughty, naughty, right? It was like, okay, good, good. Get it out of your system. And you went right back to at it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you had life. That's my point in all of that. So why do you think, and I know we're influencers, right? But why do you think we're owed an explanation for somebody else's body?
Because we've normalized it. I mean, and that's sad to say, but with social media and as much as I put things out there more for even just my own accountability, um weight is one of those few health related, right, taboo topics, if you will. People feel incredibly uncomfortable most of the time discussing. I have become comfortable. I'll never forget the first time that I actually put my weight out there, and you're like, "Are you
I
sure
did.
you want to do that?"
I did. I did.
But again, my response was, "I'm an open book, right? You have a question. I'm not here to end up and hide it, right? Yes, I have a program created around helping people, right? There for a while, I share my macros. But what happens is people would end up and try to replicate it. And so to answer your question, as the comfortable of commenting on someone else's body, yes, I end up and I put it out there because I want to be that support. I want to be able to help someone else, and people to end up and know that, hey, I didn't come from a place of bodybuilding, bikini model body, right? And hopefully the fact of seeing somebody else's body, and what has happened, um, would resonate with them. It would be real with them. They would be feel more relatable, um, because the thing about people commenting on someone else is you don't know if they're sick. You don't know if they're grieving. You don't know what they're going through behind the scenes. A lot of times that's not put out there. You don't know whether they've been working on this for 5 months or maybe it's been 5 years, right? The visible change isn't automatic to the public information, a lot of times. And so people automatically feel like they can comment on anything, right? Like whatever they see is free reign, right? So yeah, it's unfortunate
Well,
sometimes.
so with the injections, right? Imagine walking up to someone and asking about any other prescription they may take, but they don't.
Hmm.
They only ask about what is popular, what is out there all the time, and what we're inundated with. If I turn on the TV right now, I'm sure I will see some type of, you know, injection commercial. Um, so and the sad thing is, people are taking the injections. I just sometimes I cringe. It's like, oh my goodness, you only have a few pounds that you want to lose. Why are you doing that? Right now, I'm not in their shoes and I'm not, but again, health has become public property.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where, again, like you said, you wouldn't go up to someone that is, having a bad day, right? Or someone that is just sitting in the park and ask them if they're depressed, if they're on, an antidepressant, right? You wouldn't go up to someone that, is overweight and ask them if they're type 2 diabetic, right? So, why are we going up to someone that may end up and look great? Maybe they, whatever. And the first question is, what shot are you on? That comes across as an assumption, right? Instead of encouragement, right? And I do feel a lot of times that that's where we need to kind of go. It not kind of go. We need to go. We need to end up and be kind. We need to be supportive. And people like people like drama. People like that side of things. I'm sorry. People can be very nasty. And instead of saying, you look strong or you look happy or you seem like you feel good, right? It's automatically jumping to the conclusions.
Yeah, it's interesting. Social media has really trained us to be suspicious of everything. So again, it goes to the assumption of, instead of saying you look great, it's what shot are you on? Or
Mhm.
um, people have become too comfortable discussing other people's health and weight. I have a friend of mine, she did the gastric bypass a number of years ago. She lost a lot of weight. And she told me that all of her family was telling her she was too skinny, right? And I had discussed it with her, and her body weight, everything was very good. Um, I don't know why I just blurred myself out there. Um, but there was nothing wrong with what she weighed at that time. But people are also conditioned to seeing overweight people.
It is definitely very standard American, especially. No one ended up and ever complained or commented necessarily when I was, 206 pounds or when I lost weight and then gained, well, I was 212 to start. Again, never printed those family pictures. I personally did not print those family pictures. I know I have family members that have those family pictures printed, and I still cringe because for the longest time, my husband had it as his Facebook picture. Um, but again, I can't control what someone else is,
Yeah.
and I think that's where social media has also blurred that boundary. But um, no one ever made a comment when I was, 200 pounds. I went on a cruise in 24 and weighed 200 pounds. No one ever commented, right? No one would comment about the foods that I was consuming. But by golly, I end up and change the foods that I'm eating now, right? And I eat fruit, I eat vegetables, I eat protein, I eat healthy carbs, rice, oatmeal. I eat those type of things and I share it, and sometimes I will get the message of looks delicious. Sometimes I get the message of, oh my gosh, why are you eating? And that's a lot of rice in your weekly meal plan. And so where people again feel as though they can cross that boundary, um, and comment on, social media posts still are only snapshots, right? We don't know the full story unless, I guess, and that's where we've kind of talked about even, expanding our blog, um, and adding, some of these more day in the life of type posts, you know.
They've been some of our most popular blog posts. And it's like, wow, I mean, because I feel like I'm pretty boring, and I got up and I opened the door and I seen the sun come up, and I started to get ready for work, and then within 45 minutes I was eating breakfast. Like, to me it was like, ooh, that was so exciting. Like, how boring is that? They were, like I said, some of the most popular posts, blog posts that we've done. So I'm going to flip this around. So if you were taking a poke, an injection, would you tell people, and would it be any of their business?
If I was, and I'm not, because again, my stance has always been no. Um, if I was taking it, absolutely. Because again, my social media has been an open book. If I was taking a supplement, if I was, I have been very open with the three things that I do consume, and that's my hydrogen water. It's one of the things that I have been very consistent with. We've had Dr. Paul on the podcast several times. I've met him at, several different conferences. Spoke to him on the phone, right? My hydrogen has been one of my very go-tos. Plain unflavored electrolytes because and minerals, because we don't get those from our soil. Um, you'll see me, drinking just my plain. It has no added anything to it. Um, it's just simply plain. But those three, right? So I'm not anti supplement. I have been very open. I am just no pills, potions, and cocktail, whatever, right? Um, so yeah, if I was taking something, I would be very open about the fact of this is what I am using, this is what I am doing, this is how I am doing it, this is where I'm putting it, right? Because I do feel as though, as someone that, again, I guess I don't look at myself as an influencer, even though we technically are. Um, I look at myself as someone that is sharing their story. I look at someone that is trying to help people that have been in the trenches, right? I look at someone that is just trying to get information out there because I didn't have that information, right? You've seen my photos where I had Googled and I literally screenshot that stuff because I didn't have the access to, being able to structure things the way that I do now. And so, I want to provide that of this is what I was doing, this is what didn't work, this is what I'm doing, this is what didn't work. And I'm not saying, 5 years from now that what I'm currently eating, right? Because I'll be in my mid 50s at that point, um, is going to end up in work. I might have to drop the carbs a little bit. Maybe I don't need to be, 50, 55% carbs. We'll see, right? But yeah, I do feel as though if I was taking something, I would be very open with it. It
I
tells a
like that.
story. It tells my journey.
It does. And one of the things, that you kind of glossed over with your program that you have is you are not coaching people to do exactly what you did. Um, it is very individualized, and that's what I love about it because look, I'm in my late 50s. So what if I tried to do what you do, my body would not like it. In fact, I've commented, you'll text me pictures of something you're eating, and I'm like, thank you. I just gained 5 pounds from looking at that picture, and you laugh. But again, my body's in a different spot than your body. And that's what I like about your program is it's very individualized, which is why you have the coaching built into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not a here's your guide. Um, here's your, plan, right? End up and do it. And everyone, it doesn't matter whether I have one client or whether I have 15 clients. Um, they're all individual. And that's the time behind the scenes that people don't see in the coaching business is I'm not giving a blanket approach because no transformation has that one magic intervention. It is constantly adjusting different levers, right? Some people may end up and handle workout a lot better. Some people may be sleeping better. Some people may be waking up in the middle of the night to pee. Some people maybe, live in California versus Canada, right? Everyone is going to end up and have a different program that I set up for them. And so it's not going to be just like mine where I'm sitting, smack dab almost middle of the United States. It's going to be different. It's going to be based on them. It's going to be based on, their intake that they submit.
Well, I mean, perfect example, right? Today, our high was 106. That was actual temperature. That wasn't real feel. And I'm like, no, I am not going outside to walk. And you said to me,
Doesn't mean that you can't do your workout inside.
right, right. And it's nature's sauna. And I was like, oh my goodness, like somebody would find me keeled over somewhere, with that real feel temperature. But I have to take that into account right now. And that again, going back to your program, that's what I love about it is it is so individualized. For example, the weather, right? You take that
Mm-hmm.
into account. Um, I found this quote, and it kind of reminded me of you. So, and I don't know if I told you this or not, but quote, because contrary to popular belief, hard work, discipline, and consistency are still available without a prescription.
So true. So true.
So, anything else? Are there questions out there that we need to address?
I don't think so. I don't thank you to those that are saying your honesty is so refreshing. So all I've been out here, hoping for is to end up and portray that honesty, portray that, open book. So if anyone does have questions, feel free to end up and message me if you don't want to comment. Um, but yeah, I don't necessarily see any comments.
Okay.
I
So, as we wrap up tonight's episode, we hope we leave you with one important reminder. You rarely know the full story behind someone else's transformation. What we see in a photo and on social media or in a passing moment is often just the result, not the months or years of effort, setbacks, learning, and consistency that created it. Real change doesn't always come from a shortcut, a hack, a miracle solution. More often, it comes from ordinary choices repeated day after day. So, before making its assumptions about someone else's journey and before giving up on your own, remember this: real change is real. It's just slower and quieter than the internet makes it look. So, yeah, go ahead, Becky.
so true. So
Yeah,
true. And, my transformation didn't happen because one magic intervention. It
right,
happened because of the years that I have, been learning, experimenting, and adjusting, and eventually understanding my own metabolism as well as others. And, that I needed more than just another diet.
right.
And that's my story. And, just because it didn't involve medication, it didn't involve surgery, it didn't involve, a poke, doesn't mean that that can't be someone else's story. And I'm proud of you if that's the journey that you're on. um, because I do feel like, anyone that is making progress, even if they have to use a crutch, progress is progress, and that's something that we should be supporting, and we should be kind and understanding of each individual by themselves.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for spending this time with us here on the Beyond Nutrition Community podcast. If you found value in our conversation, please take a moment to like and subscribe and share this podcast with someone who could benefit from hearing it. Your support helps us reach more people who are looking for real answers and a healthier path forward. And if you're ready to go deeper than just this podcast, we're going to invite you to join the BNC, the Beyond Nutrition community. Um, Inside our community, you'll find ongoing education, tools, resources, accountability, and the support of experienced coaches who can help you apply what you're learning to your own health journey because knowledge is very powerful. But transformation happens when you have guidance, support, and a community to put that knowledge into action. So remember, you don't have to do it alone. Well, we do go live every Monday evening. We were a little tardy tonight because of technical difficulties, but we do aim for our 7 p.m. Central Time every Monday. For those of you listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, new episodes are uploaded every Tuesday morning. So we'll see you next week for another episode, and we're going to tackle a hot topic in the health and wellness world. And so we're going to title next week's podcast Food is Medicine, Revolution or Buzzword. Can the food on your plate be as powerful as the medicine in your cabinet, from preventing chronic disease and supporting metabolic health to influencing the future of healthcare? The food is medicine movement continues to gain momentum, but where does the science end and the hype begin? So, join us as we explore the evidence and the challenging, the common assumptions, right, in the discussions. Uh, do you believe food can be medicine? We're going to talk about that next week. So hopefully you will find that very thought provoking and you can come up with some questions before next week. You can always reach out to us through our social media sites, which I have, there's a whole list of how to get hold of us under the show note, under the podcast notes here. So, Becky, I'm going to let you end this and take us on out tonight.
Awesome. Absolutely. And like I said, I'm an open book. If anyone has questions about this journey or my journey, or the program that I offer that is similar to mine, which is called the Aligned Metabolism, it's my structured signature program. Feel free to reach out for me for more information. Have a wonderful